Hello, friends from the Red Bank Public Library. This is Dawn with this month's STEM program featuring snowflakes, perfect for this time of year when we've seen so many snowstorms. We have a great kids' narrative biography called Snowflake Bentley about a gentleman who was a photographer and realized that all snowflakes were symmetrical yet unique. So we're going to be reading that. But before we do that, I want to give you some instructions on how to grow snowflake crystals at home. You can do it with salt or sugar, but to speed up the process, because that takes about 5 days to a week, you can use a special laundry detergent enhancer called Borax that you can get at ShopRite and other grocery stores. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you and going from a site called Little Bits for Little Hands that has great science experiments, demonstrations, and instructions on the site to take you step by step exactly what to do to make your own snowflake. Give me one moment so I can share my screen with you. And this is a site which I will put down in the comments field and in the description of our video. So it is all about how to grow these beautiful snowflakes. We'll start at step 1. Makes sense. And some of the materials you will need. You will need borax that's found with the laundry detergent aisle, some water, jars or vases, glass is preferred. I did read one science experiment where they did it with plastic cups and it also worked, but it does seem like glass is better for this experiment. Some craft sticks, pencils, wooden skewers, or additional pipe cleaners to lay flat over the top of the surface to let your snowflake dangle and hang down. String or ribbon. Also, you can use fishing line and some pipe cleaners. How to make your snowflake crystals. You're going to cut a pipe cleaner into thirds and place the pieces together and twisting the center to hold them together and pull the 6 sides to look like a snowflake. We'll show you that in a second down below here. You can add other details, these little pieces on to make the fancy edges if you'd like to. And then add string. Tie a long piece of string to the center of the pipe cleaner snowflake and wrap the other end around a pencil. And we're trying to give you materials that you have easily available at home or school. Now, so for icicles, my son wrapped the pipe cleaner around a marker to make it curl. So you can do that. It almost looks like a noodle in an icicle. Whatever shape you make might look great. I know other people made them into nests to look like crystals and just made one big spiral circle. So this is what your snowflake will look like when it is attached to the string. If you want to learn more about snowflake facts, you can click here on this link in the site to learn more about snowflakes. Tip 1, before starting, double check the opening of the jar with the size of your snowflake. It's easy to push the pipe cleaner in to start, but difficult to pull it out once the crystals have formed. And I also read that if your pipe cleaner is touching the edge of the jar, then the crystallization process will cause it to form to the jar and be very difficult to get out without breaking. So you want to make sure that your pipe cleaner is not touching any of the edges. Attach the snowflakes to the popsicle sticks and check the length of the string too. And that's what snowflake tip 2 is all about, making sure your string does not touch the bottom of the glass. Step number 3, making that borax solution. You want to dissolve 3 tablespoons of borax powder for each cup of boiling water. So you have to do a little bit of math. You're making a saturated solution, which is a great chemistry concept. And by heating the water up, you can actually add more of the borax to the solution, making it oversaturated, super saturated, and making it be able to form those great crystals. Again, you might need to use boiling water. So it says make sure you're asking an adult if you're younger and need help using the stove or the microwave. Water is made up of molecules, and when you boil the water, the molecules move further away from one another. But when you freeze the water, they move closer together. Boiling hot water allows for more of the borax powder to dissolve to create the desired saturated solution. So this is an example of what it might look like. It doesn't look like much now, but those chemicals in there will definitely help the crystals form. Step 4, growing your crystal snowflakes. Once you filter your jars with borax solution, and does recommend about 3/4 a cup in each jar, depending how big your jar is. Of course, you have to be able to cover the entire snowflake. Hang your snowflakes or icicles down inside the jar. You need to make sure they are fully immersed, but not touching the bottoms or the sides. And this step is super important next. You don't want to put them any place where they can be shaken, stirred, knocked over, or disturbed, because it does need to be quite still for the process of the crystallization to form. You want to set the jars in a quiet place where they won't be disturbed. No tugging on the string, stirring the solution, or moving the jar around. They need to sit still to work their magic. After just a couple hours, you will see some changes. Later on that night, you will see more crystals growing, and you want to leave the solution alone for at least 24 hours to even 48 hours. So that's up to 2 days before you see the optimum results. And make sure to keep checking the stage of growth the crystals are in. Now for drying out the ornaments. The next day, you want to gently lift out your crystal snowflake and let them dry on paper towels for an hour or so to absorb the extra liquid. Then it's time to hang your crystal snowflakes and enjoy these sparkling decorations. You can see how absolutely beautiful they came out. I hope yours look just like that. If you'd like to take some pictures and send it to us at the Red Bank Library, that would be great. Let's continue reading a little more about how the crystals are actually formed. And this is the picture down below here of the icicles that the other kid did. Notice they're not all the way completely submerged, but just the bottom parts are submerged in the borax solution. Okay, let's take a look. Here they are again, looking beautiful crystal icicles. And there's more ideas below for snowflake projects if you want to do a whole series of snowflake crafts and science experiments. So I hope that gives you an idea of how to create your own snowflakes with the solution. And now I'm going to read you the book about the person, Mr. Bentley, who photographed snowflakes, showing that they are all unique and beautiful. Let me go back to stop sharing my screen for you. And welcome back to my house, where we did have lots of icicles and snow crystals on the ground, but today it is raining outside, so some of that beauty is beginning to melt. So the book that we have to share today is Snowflake Bentley. I know it's a little hard to see the cover since it's a glossy cover with this light, but I will go ahead and open it up and show you the pages inside, and you'll be able to see much better. So I'm going to read it to you first, then I'm going to hold the pictures up to the screen. There are a lot of words, so please settle in and be patient. In the days when farmers worked with ox and sled and cut the dark with lantern light, there lived a boy who loved snow more than anything else in the world. So you can tell that this book is taking place a long, long time ago, probably even before there was much electricity. Willie Bentley's happiest days were snowstorm days. He watched snowflakes fall on his mittens on the dried grass of Vermont farm fields. On the dark metal handle of the barn door, he said snow was as beautiful as butterflies or apple blossoms. I'm going to show you this book because there's a special thing about it. On the side of the page, there's more detail about Snowflake Bentley and his discovery. So I'm going to read that part of the book to you as well. It says, Wilson Bentley was born February 9th, 1865, on a farm in Jericho, Vermont, between Lake Champlain and Mount Mansfield, in the heart of the snow belt, where the annual snowfall is about 120 inches. That is way more snowfall than we ever get here in New Jersey. So let's continue and see what happens. He could net butterflies and then show them to his older brother, Charlie. He could pick apple blossoms and take them to his mother, but he could not share snowflakes because he could not save them. As you know, they do melt. Willie's mother was his teacher until he was 14 years old. He had attended school for only a few years. She had a set of encyclopedias, Willie said. I read them all. Encyclopedias are big books of lots of general knowledge about many, many different topics that you can explore. Now they have encyclopedias online too. When his mother gave him an old microscope, he used it to look at flowers, raindrops, and blades of grass. Best of all, he used to look at the snow. While other children built forts and pelted snowballs at roosting crows, Willie was actually catching single snowflakes. Day after stormy day, he studied the icy crystals. From his boyhood on, he studied all forms of moisture. He kept a record of the weather and did many experiments with raindrops. So we call a person who studies the weather a meteorologist. You might see them on TV or the news shows. Their intricate patterns were even more beautiful than he had imagined. He expected to find whole flakes that were the same, that were copies of each other, but he never did. Willie decided he must find a way to save snowflakes so others could see their wonderful designs. For 3 winters, he tried drawing snow crystals. They always melted before he could finish. So he learned that most crystals had 6 branches, although a few had 3. For each snowflake, the 6 branches were alike. I found that snowflakes were masterpieces of design, he said. No one design was ever repeated. When a snowflake melted, just that much beauty was gone without leaving any record behind. Starting at the age of 15, he drew 100 snow crystals each winter for 3 winters. There's got to be a better way to record and keep the record of these snowflakes in our memories. When he was 16, Willie read of a camera with its own microscope. If I had that camera, I could photograph snowflakes, he told his mother. Willie's mother knew he would not be happy until he could share what he had seen. Fussing with snow is just foolishness, his father said, but still, he loved his son. When Willie was 17, his parents spent their savings and bought the camera. Wow. The camera made images on large glass negatives. Its microscope could magnify a tiny crystal from 64 to 3,600 times its actual size. Wow, that is really significant. It was taller than a newborn calf and cost as much as his father herd of 10 cows. Willie was sure it was the best of all cameras. So he was probably the only one in all the state of Vermont that owned a unique camera like that. It was really a piece of scientific equipment. Even so, his first pictures were failures, no better than shadows. He would not quit. Mistake by mistake, snowflake by snowflake, Willie worked through every storm. Winter ended, the snow melted, and he had no good pictures. He waited for another season of snow. One day, in the second winter, he tried a new experiment, and it worked. Willie had figured out how to photograph snowflakes. Now everyone can see the great beauty in a tiny crystal, he said. So Willie's experiment, he used a very small lens opening, which let only a little light reach the negative, but he kept the lens open for several seconds, up to 1.5 minutes. He learned too that he could make the snow crystal show up more clearly by using a sharp knife to cut away all the dark parts of the negatives around the crystals. The etching meant extra hours of work for each photograph, but Willie didn't mind. But in those days, no one cared. Neighbors laughed at the idea of photographing snow. Snow in Vermont is common as dirt, they said. We don't need pictures. Willie said the photographs would be his gift to the world. While other farmers sat by the fire or rode to town with horse and sleigh, Willie studied snowstorms. He stood at the shed door and held out a black tray to catch the flakes. He learned that each snowflake begins as a speck, much too tiny to be seen. Little bits, molecules of water attached to the speck to form its branches. As the crystal grows, the branch comes together and traps small quantities of air. Many things affect the way these crystal branches grow. A little more cold, a bit less wind, or a bit more moisture will mean different shaped branches. Willie said that was why in all his pictures he never found two snowflakes alike. When he only found jumbled broken crystals, he brushed the tray clean with a turkey feather and held it out again. He waited hours for just the right crystals and didn't notice the cold. If the shed were warm, the snow would melt. If he breathed on the black tray, the snow would melt. If he twitched a muscle as he held the snow crystals on the long wooden pick, the snowflake would break. He had to work fast or the snowflake would evaporate before he could slide it into place and take its picture. Some winters he was able to make only a few dozen good pictures. Some winters he made hundreds. The best snowstorm of his life occurred on Valentine's Day in 1928. He made 100 photographs during the 2-day storm. He called the storm a gift from King Winter. Willie so loved the beauty of nature, he took pictures in all seasons. In the summer, his nieces and nephews rubbed coat hangers with sticky pitch from spruce trees. Then Willie could use them to pick up spider webs jeweled with water drops and take their pictures. On fall nights, he would gently tie a grasshopper to a flower so he could find it in the morning and photograph the dew-covered insect. Willie's nieces and nephews lived on the side of the farmhouse that Willie shared with his brother Charlie. Willie often played the piano as they sang and shared stories and games with them. So he was very talented in different ways. But his snow crystal pictures were always his favorites. He gave copies away or sold them for a few cents. He made special pictures as gifts for birthdays. He held the evening slideshows on the lawns of his friends. Children and adults sat on the grass and watched while Willie projected his slides onto a sheet strung over a clothesline. Many colleges and universities bought lantern slide copies of his photographs and added to their collections each year. Artists and designers used the photographs to imagine their own work and inspire them. He wrote about snow and published his pictures in magazines. He gave speeches about snow to faraway scholars and neighborhood skywatchers. "You are doing great work," said a professor from Wisconsin. The little farmer came to be known as the world's expert on snow, the Snowflake Man. But he never grew rich. He spent every penny on his pictures. Willie said there were treasures in snow. "I can't afford to miss a single snowstorm," he told a friend. "I never know when I will find some wonderful prize." Other scientists raised money so Willie could gather his best photographs in a book. When he was 66 years old, Willie's book, His Gift to the World, was published. Still, he was not ready to quit. Says even today, those who want to learn about snow crystals begin with Wilson Bentley's book, Snow Crystals. By 1926, he had spent $15,000 on his work and received $4,000 from the sale of photographs and slides. That is a lot of money back then. Less than a month after turning the first page on his book, Willie walked 6 miles home in a blizzard to make more pictures. He became ill with pneumonia after that walk and died 2 weeks later. A monument was built for Willie in the center of town. The girls and boys who had been his neighbors grew up and told their sons and daughters the story of the man who loved snow. 40 years after Wilson Bentley's death, children in his village worked to set up a museum in honor of the farmer scientist. And his book has taken the delicate snow crystals that once blew across Vermont, past mountains, over the earth. Neighbors and strangers have come to know of the icy wonders that their land and their own mittens, thanks to Snowflake Bentley. So the plaque on the monument says Snowflake Bentley, Jericho's world's famous snowflake authority. For 50 years, Wilson A. Bentley, a simple farmer, developed his technique of microphotography to reveal to the world the grandeur and mystery of the snowflake, its universal hexagonal shape, and its infinite numbers of lovely designs. And in the end, they do show an actual photograph, I'll hold it up for you, of Snowflake Bentley doing his work. So you're ever up in Vermont, you might take a trip to his museum to learn even more. I hope this book inspired you to love the snow and explore microscopes and science even more. And I'm really looking forward to you making some snowflake crystals out of pipe cleaners and borax. If you are joining us for our Read Squared program, this week's code I believe, is Snowflake. We'll see you again next month for more STEM. Have a great day.